I'm Idiotech, and today we're going to review Warhammer 40,000 Regicide. So what is the game? Well, essentially it's chess. Before you run away or turn off the video, it's chess, but it has some interesting strategy additions. So essentially they've taken the game of chess and they've added some turn-based strategy elements. So if you've played XCOM, for example, it has a lot of similar elements to that. RNG-based combat, action points, etc, etc. And it's all that set in the 40k universe. So there are a number of bugs in this game, most of them small, none of them game-breaking. People have reported quite a few on the forums. I've had some user interface related bugs, but there's nothing game-breaking here, and it is an early access title. So if you're expecting it to be perfect, I think that's a bit unreasonable, and for the most part, everything seems to be working just fine. Now the one thing you should know is that you do have to create an account for this game, and that procedure requires you to have an online connection. So if you're not okay with games forcing you to be online, or you don't want to create an account, then you've been warned. So for the most part, the user interface is very nice, it's clean, it suits the theme well, I like it a lot. It has some Steam integration stuff, it lets you check your friends list, which seems a bit unnecessary, but it's cool to have. The one area of the user interface though that is limited is the graphics options, and that's because it's made in the Unity engine. And most people who make games in the Unity engine don't break all the graphics options down into their individual components, and they just leave it at the default thing. And the default thing is low all the way through to fantastic. So I'd like a lot more granular control here, especially for people with older PCs who want to try and make the game look good but also run reasonably well. So I think that's absolutely essential. If you're making a PC game, you need to have a robust set of graphics options available for your player base. Graphics and art style. Good looking character models for the most part here. Lots of nice particle effects. Overall the game looks really good. The gore's cool, it all looks nice. The animations that are there are also very nice. The big letdown in this area though is that the animations themselves are very limited. So there's a number of animations in the game, but they're always the same. And so you get bored of them very quickly and you end up just skipping through them. And that's kind of a shame, because the point of a game like this that's based on a sort of battle chess type thing is seeing the characters kill each other, right? That's the fun part. You take a piece and they slaughter each other and it's fun to watch. And there's not enough here, there's not enough variety, it's not interesting enough to keep you engaged for any more than 3 matches. After the third match, you'll just be skipping through all of them. And that's kind of a shame, so I hope they add a lot more variety to this, because it certainly needs it. Other than that, the environments could be a bit more interesting, and by environments I mean environment, because there's only one currently. It's a sort of snowy ice map. It's just kind of static and boring, to be honest. It would be nice if there was some events that happened, or like some cool particle effects, or something happened at certain points during the game, or maybe it was interactable, like Hearthstone for example, so the player could mess around with it while they were waiting for the enemy to move. None of that's currently there though, so they just feel like sort of boring placeholders or just static environments that are just not very interesting. It's no more interesting than looking at a standard chessboard, for example. So it would be nice to see them do more there. But overall, the graphics are really nice. For the most part, I think it's done very well, and I enjoy it.
I fear nothing, for I am fear incarnate.
So the music in this is really well suited to the 40k setting. It sounds 40k, and that's really good. It serves to provide a good atmosphere for play. I enjoy it for the most part. It's not very memorable, but it doesn't need to be. It does its job, and it does its job well. The sound, on the other hand, just the general sound effects, they're a little bit in some places. Some places they're good, some places they're not so good. And the problem is because you're playing chess, you do the same thing over and over again. So when a pawn shoots a guy with a machine gun in this case, you hear the same machine gun sound over and over again. It would have been nice to have some variety here. I understand why they didn't do it, but it does get a little grating after a while. After about my 3rd or 4th game, I just turned all the sound off, to be honest, and I was listening to a podcast in the background. So, you know, it's not amazing. The one thing here that is cool, though, is the voice acting. So each piece has its own sort of voice set, and I really like the voice acting. It's very cool, very 40k, very well done. I hope the campaign has a lot more of this. And the campaign isn't currently in the game, but when it is in the game, I hope the cutscenes and the voice acting in there, if there is going to be any, is done by those people, because it's fantastic, and I think it would add an awful lot to the story of this game. So I'll quickly just break this down for you. So they've got chess, which I'm not going to bother explaining, but then they have Regicide. So if you think of Regicide as standard chess, but once you've taken your move, you have 3 action points, and you can spend those on abilities from each of the units that you have, i.e. the pieces, and then you can also spend them on abilities, like player abilities, which are kind of, if you think of them as like spells that you can cast. And so essentially how it works is this. I make my move. I move my pawn forward 2 spaces, for example, and then I can use 3 action points. And so I could pick 3 pawns and then shoot with my machine gun, or I could do a melee attack, or I could throw a grenade. And they all cost varying amounts of ability points. And then on top of that, I can use player abilities. And right now, we only have 4, and they're going to unlock more with the progression system. But you can heal a large number of your units, or you can shield someone, or you can stun the enemy, right? So that's kind of how it works. And I like it in theory. I like it in theory because it allows you to solve some of the problems that chess has by default. You can stop turtling players. You can be more aggressive. If you have a slight disadvantage, you still have a chance to come back, and it's not just a matter of quitting the game or waiting for it to end. So I like where it's going in theory. The problem is right now, though, in terms of game modes, is that it's very limited in what you can do with it, and that's that you only have skirmish mode and multiplayer mode, and they're identical. It's just one you play against a player and one you play against the AI. Now, they're going to introduce a campaign mode that's apparently going to have 50 missions, and it's going to have a story and all that, but that's not there, and there's going to be a progression system where it looks like you can upgrade your pieces and level them up and give them more stats, which is interesting. And then we're obviously going to get more maps, because currently, as I mentioned, we only have 1. And then, at the moment, there's only 2 factions, and there's no real difference between those factions. They're practically identical. There's one piece that has one ability on one piece that's different than the other side. And that's it. So, the factions seem kind of just cosmetic at this point, to be honest. So, overall, in the game modes and story section, it's kind of really limited. And I can't comment on half of it, because it's not there. So, right now, guys, it's a little bit lacking, to be honest. This game uses random number generation. It uses dice rolls to determine the success and failure of hits. And so in a normal game of chess, I take your piece, you take my piece. But in this, I can take your piece and I'll instantly kill you. But if I can't take your piece, I can shoot at your piece, right? And so I shoot at your piece and then I roll a dice to determine how much damage I do. And that's all modified by my stats. So a pawn will have weapon skill and damage and health and armor and all these things. And that will all modify the dice rolls. So very much like a D&D type system. And the problem with this is that you can roll 3 crits in a row, right? And so I'll give you an example. I was playing against an opponent and I had a significant advantage. I had way more pieces on the board than him, my pieces were of higher value than his, and his king 2-shot my king and I lost the game, right? And he 2-shot my king because he did 2 crits simultaneously. Meanwhile, I was shooting at him and I missed almost every shot for 3 turns in a row. But then he just hits me twice with crits and I'm dead and I'm out of the game. Now that for me was incredibly frustrating, and I imagine it would be very frustrating for other people as well. Now if you're the kind of person who doesn't mind RNG in games, you enjoyed games like XCOM and you didn't find it frustrating when you constantly got crit and died, then that's fine. But I think for a lot of people they're going to find that system very frustrating and unrewarding. When you take that system and you combine it with these potential stat upgrades that we're going to get with the progression system, and then you combine that with the player abilities, which currently we only have 4, but once you've unlocked all of those, there's going to be an optimal build there. And so someone who's put a lot of time into the game will have more player abilities, they'll have more stat upgrades, and those things will benefit their RNG. They will modify the RNG in their favor. And so if an experienced long-term player comes along, well, not necessarily experienced, but just someone who's put time in and unlocked all the stuff and upgraded all their units, and they play against a new player, I feel that new player is going to have a significant disadvantage in multiplayer. And then, on top of that, just taking a game that's fundamentally skill and knowledge-based, that chess is, you know, if we were to compare it to something modern, we'd compare it to StarCraft, right? StarCraft is a game where you play that game, and if you lose, it is your fault. 99% of the time, it's your fault. You did something wrong, you didn't get the right piece of information, you made a poor decision, and it resulted in your loss. In a game like poker, for example, you can play it with skill and strategy, but ultimately you will get bad hands and you will just lose, you know? You'll get bad beats, and that's just the way poker is. Now, a game like this, which is based on something that's very strategic, very knowledge-based, very skill-based, I make the right decisions, I win. To add RNG to that is just completely opposed to it. Like, fundamentally, in terms of a design concept, it's completely opposed to it, in my opinion. And it led to me being very frustrated. And when I crit the guy for 3 crits in a row and won, it didn't feel very satisfying. I just really don't think that RNG works very well with a system that's traditionally always been skill-based and had no randomness in it at all. I think what they could do here is that they could take away RNG completely and have it be flat damage. Say, for example, the machine gun takes 5 health off a guy when he shoots him every time, and the grenade always does 10 damage to 5 guys in a radius or whatever. then you can plan for stuff like that. You can build a strategy around that knowledge. But when it's random like this, you can't. You go, well, I hope he doesn't crit me and kill my entire army. You know, it really, really, really doesn't work in my opinion. I think it's the worst element of this game is this choice to go with this classic D&D RNG-based system in a game that's always fundamentally been about skill and knowledge. So the business model for this game is pretty straightforward at this point. It's 10% off currently, which makes it $13.49, and when the game comes out, it will be $14.99. So honestly, I think for the price, what you will get at the end when the game is actually finished, I think it will be worth it for the price. Right now, certainly not. One of the things that does concern me, well, there's actually two things that do concern me. The first is that they're planning to have this game finished in 2 to 4 months, and I think with the things that I've suggested here and the things that I've pointed out that are wrong, it certainly needs more than 2 to 4 months. Now that is, unless they've already finished most of the work and they're just polishing it up right now. But even then, there are some severe balance issues here. And then it does need some more work in terms of like animation sets, you know, some additional sounds, etc., to really put it up to a very high quality game. So I'm a little concerned about the time period they've given until release. But the thing I'm more concerned about is the fact that this game is going to come out in iOS. And so I'm wondering how what their business model is going to be like for iOS, because they haven't told us. They haven't told us if there's going to be DLC, if there's going to be microtransactions. This game could well come out on iOS for free, and then you end up paying, what, $15 for it now on PC. I think that's something people should be a little concerned about, and it would be nice if they would come out and explain what their business model for the other platforms is actually going to be. Because I can't imagine them selling a game for $15 on iOS. It's not a very sound business strategy to do that in that marketplace. So it is something worth considering, and we don't have any information at all on DLC or microtransactions at this point. So my conclusion on this game is as follows. I think it has a lot of potential to be a very enjoyable game. I think the setting is very, very cool. The problem right now for me is the core gameplay aspect in terms of the randomness that they've put in there with chess. I don't think it works very well. I think it needs to be fundamentally reshaped and changed, or at least significantly balanced in its current form, for it to be something that I could possibly enjoy. However, if you're not too bothered by the RNG and it looks good to you, then I think you should probably just wait until it's finished. Because according to them, they're going to have the game finished in 2 to 4 months anyway. It's going to have a campaign with 50 missions and a story, a progression system, a bunch more maps, and hopefully some more factions. Right now, even if you are interested in this game, I don't think it offers you enough for your money, and I think you're better off waiting 2 to 4 months, seeing how the game progresses, and then picking it up then. So that's my review of Warhammer 40,000 Regicide. If you found this helpful or useful in some way, please leave a comment, like it, share it, do all the things that people tell you to do at the end of YouTube videos, and I'll catch you guys next time.